Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. I have with me Brigadier Arun Sehgal, who's going to throw a little light on what in the world is happening within this country, this mysterious nation whose creator's day is around, which is called Pakistan. It seems to have dug a hole in its backyard and suddenly found a lot of oil, a lot of money coming into Pakistan. What are these bigger interests? What do these lenders of the money want from Pakistan? Now, it's important that we see this from all different angles so that we understand what it is and actually look at our interests within this region. Pakistan still is a very important country that India must cater for and must counter for. So, sir, thank you so much for joining me. It's always a pleasure listening and learning from you. Looking forward for a wonderful session today as well, sir. So, opening, sir, what's happening in this country? It seems like, as I said, it just found oil in its backyard or something.
Well, Pakistan, in a after my recent talks in with Pakistanis, I came back and I said that the problem with the Pakistan is, for the first time, they believe that they have lost direction. They do not know how to handle the multiple challenges that are uh, being faced by them. There is the Taliban, there is the internal strife, there is a bad politics, there is a political infighting, there is no economy, there is no food, and on top of that, the army has let loose a great uh, uh, degree of repression and using the Army Act to put down people. The worry is of the establishment is that the Tariq of Pakistan should not come back, and etc. 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 So in every sphere, they are in a sort of a shamazel as to how do we handle the multiple challenges that are. On top of that, what is happening to the economy is the economy is creating a huge scenario of their where their military readiness is coming down. Their operational readiness is suffering. They do not have resources. They do not have spares. They do not have money to buy new weapons. And on top of that, and every day a new story comes on from India that India buys four Herons, which is a 36 hours uh, flying capability. And then India has developed this, India has developed that, and on top of that, even they thought that they will try to win favors with the West through selling weapons to Ukraine. They do not have the resources to send those weapons. Now they are shipping them to Arab countries, and from where they are being airlifted by those guys. So it's a huge mess. On top of that, despite the IMF loan, large number of debts are coming home to roost. The how much money can Chinese continue to put in China and give them sort of a clean chit in terms of returning of the loans. So this is a scenario that face. But today, as we discussed, I want to discuss three specific issues with you, particularly as it impacts this country. Uh, First and foremost is what are the developments in West Asia and what is their impact on Pakistan? The second issue I want to discuss is the emerging Pakistan, China, and Pakistan US equations. And third is how uh, a very insecure and uppity chief of the army staff is trying to seize the opportunity of political dishevel in Pakistan to not only create his military link, I mean, create his military standing, but is trying to now become the economic minister of Pakistan. So that is a very very serious issue that we will just talk about it. So coming to West Asia. See, West Asia has been the driver of bailing out Pakistan in all these past couple of decades. Whenever Pakistan was in trouble, They would send them either free oil, or they will give them a loan, or they will give them a gratis payment of $1.2 billion. What has happened lately is this, that the West Asia itself is under the influence of global geopolitics. The American influence in West Asia is on the wane. The We saw Biden coming to Saudi Arabia to build bridges. It has not sort of worked. Then we see the Chinese and the Russian footprints is increasing in the region. And the regional countries, the main countries, that is Saudi Arabia, Iran, UAE, even Egypt, are trying to look at alternate models of investments in their countries outside the West, because then they believe that the West is too invasive a proposition. They demand a lot, and then they push you into various camps, and you lose your strategic autonomy. So they are now leveraging the same strategic autonomy with these two blocks, the Western bloc, which is the United States and his allies bloc, and on the other hand is the Sino or Russian bloc, which is trying to find its feet in the region. Now, with this as the backdrop, what has happened? Chinese have increased their investments in Saudi Arabia. They brokered the Saudi Arabia-Iran peace. They are recently had a meeting of the Gulf Council when Xi Jinping went in December to Saudi Arabia. They were there at the Ukraine peace talks in Saudi Arabia. So what has happened is that the Saudi Arabia as a region, and particularly West Asia, along with UAE and the other Gulf Council members, are now trying to create an alternative model of engagement where they are not solely dependent on the West.
Hmm.
Now, in this model of engagement, they are, uh, while they are maintaining the relationship with the West, there is no doubt about it. But they are now looking at de-dollarization, buying the energy in yuan, and what's the price they are getting for it? Recently, as you are aware, Saudi Arabia has has sought to become a member of SCO. They are on a very strong wicket how to be inducted in BRICS. On the other hand, you have seen Iran has just joined SCO. Iran is becoming a member of the BRICS, is trying to become a member of BRICS. And along with all this, there is a new construct of regional alliances coming up, which is based on Russia, China, Iran up to one end, and second is the Saudis, Chinese, and Russians are supporting them from the sidelines. Adding to that is the whole element of Americans trying to influence it and build up on that Abraham Accord thing on the basis of ITU2 and three trilateral corridors, or three corridors in which were accepted by the NSAs of Saudi Arabia, Israel, and India to build these corridors. UAE, to build these corridors, which have a regional connectivity and backend connectivity. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this purely because the region which used to support and which was the hotbed of Wahhabi Islam and the Al Qaeda has moved forward towards a more developmental oriented agenda. And in this developmental oriented agenda, the rentier state of Pakistan has no place, or has a very limited place. So, what are they exploiting? They are exploiting three things. One is they continue to provide soldiers for the palace guards and other crux issues, special forces, etc., to for the security of the the kingdom, the mainstay people. Secondly, they are providing them weapons and equipment. Now, increasingly limited this thing because they are getting directly the similar weapons, if not better weapons, from Russia and China, if not from United States, which they are also getting. And on third issue is the uh, expatriates who are sending them money home. There again, the Pakistanis are becoming less and less acceptable because there are far too many issues involved with them, etc. But the glue which still connects Pakistan to the region are three. One is that despite the fact that the Al Qaeda and other the influence has increased, the worry for the regional actors is that the Pakistan, which is next to Taliban, continues to be the hub of radical Islamist forces, and they believe that they can at any stage upstage these developments and bring about instability back in the region for their own good. That's one issue. So they have to keep track of these elements and ensure. And the another element is because if you're looking at the Saudis and the UAEs, then their big concern is the Shiite Islamic militancy, which is again seen as a source of instability for the region. So if you look at it from that perspective, the Pakistani as a rentier state is to be to be uh, engaged, one, to ensure that it does not become a source of instability, and second thing is that it is an Islamic country, an important Islamic country with nuclear weapons. Now, nuclear weapons, particularly in the context of Iran developing a nuclear capability, the people in Saudi Arabia, etc. I'm sure you are aware of these of the earlier reports about 8 to 10 years back, how the king of Saudi Arabia was taken into the Pakistan nuclear establishment and shown the crown jewels, so to say. To- so that is a ongoing thing, something which they say that if the push comes to shove, we can always get those weapons from Pakistan, etc. Third element is that they are now looking at investments in Pakistan to defray costs and use the cheap labor, cheap land for building up capacities, particularly like we recently the decision was taken to put up a $10 billion refinery, out of which incidentally the Saudi is only committing $4.5 billion. They are not giving the whole money. They are asking the Pakistanis to put in 1.5 billion to $2 billion, and rest they said we will go to and amortize this thing to international financing. Similarly, the Saudis are now working, and along with UAE and Qatar and other people, are trying to work out an arrangement where they will lease out the ports as well as the airports, because Pakistani simply does not have any money, and Pakistan continues to be an important state and a nuclear weapon state. So it is for this reason, there is a degree of investment that is going to come in. And but this interesting part of this thing is that these elements, these countries who are going to invest in this thing will have total control. I repeat, total control over these facilities. They will run them as a commercial venture and will give Pakistan a chutput of money like the Americans used to give them, being a rentier state. And the joke was that American money used to come in a fashion that if you are a Islamist today, you will get a green envelope. But if you try to portray as a non-Islamist and a pro-American ally, then you will get a blue envelope. The idea was you will get dollars, but that dollar will be for having your people killed and dying for Americans' cause. But that's how it was, and it continues to be there. So what is happening is that this is being done, and that's the story of West Asia as commitment. etc. With Pakistan. So Pakistan essentially is a source of instability. Pakistan is a source of concern, and yet an opportunity which is emerging, which these countries believe that they have the land, they have the resources, and a certain degree of competent manpower, which can be leveraged to produce oil, other goods, run ports at a huge cost advantage to them. And they also, incidentally, provide alternative places for these countries which do not have that kind of flexibility in terms of ports and other services are concerned. So this is the story as far as Pakistan is concerned. Now, I will come to the Pakistani military side as to why they have come first, then go to China and America, if you don't mind, if I have your
No,
permission.
listen, can I just ask you one
Okay.
question before we
Okay.
jump into that area of the discussion? So you mentioned two things. One is, of course, West Asia's own interest to West Asia, Middle East, their own interest to come into this region, and you've subtly hinted about the change in Islam, uh, which is a big factor. The Saudis are working on it, and you've kind of also talked about the nukes, which is, I mean, explosive. Pardon the pun. Uh, the sheer factor that West Asia is now interested in a land which is, and I'm purposefully calling it in a piece of land, because I don't. Do you think that they're engaging with Pakistan because it is Pakistan, or they're engaging with Pakistan because they need what Pakistan has? For example, the land, the resources, the people, and this and that. Would they? Are they? Is it the Islamic connection which is bringing them here? Is it the nuclear connection which you think is getting them inside, or is it just the sheer factor of the scare key if this guy goes off, or the instability will be in this entire region? What do you think is the main driving force, sir?
Okay. It's all of them together, but the priority is a piece of land, economic opportunity, need to continuously engage Pakistan primarily because of the instability it can cause. And lastly, and most importantly, is the fact that the Pakistan is a nuclear state, and they believe that it is important to have the only Islamic nuclear state to prevent it from going under, and for multiple reasons. Uh, they have the nuclear weapons, so if one Islamic country brother has a nuclear weapon, he can lend it and support the other countries. That is their belief, and I am pretty sure that should the Saudi Arabia requires some kind of a nuclear relationship, or what I would even call an extended deterrence. And I'm making an explosive statement. I said Pakistan can provide at a cost and extended deterrence to Saudi Arabia, just like the Americans are providing an extended deterrence to both Japan and Korea. So it is something of that nature that is always on the cards, and therefore it is important that the Muslim Brotherhood. And the last point, which I did not mention earlier, is the OIC support. Pakistan needs these countries for the OIC support, particularly on Kashmir and other issues. But it is slowly dawning on them that this is a failing enterprise. Uh, but the problem with the Pakistan state is, while the options are increasing for the West Asian Brotherhood,
Mhm.
the Pakistani states' options are getting narrowed. I mean, how much can you use
Yeah,
the Indian card all the time?
yeah, yeah.
And that is happening is that the Indians today we have signed a comprehensive economic agreement with the UAE. We have a best of relationship with Saudi Arabia. We are going in for investments in Saudi Arabia. We are doing military exercises with these countries. And we are getting into infrastructure investment, which I talked about. So so the issue basically is this: is that this is the concern on both sides, and therefore uh, People like Rahil Sharif and all are there, and they are the ones. So there is this element of Muslim brotherhood always prevalent. So, so once again in history, we are seeing a Pakistani state which is dysfunctional is being salvaged purely because it is too important and too explosive and too disruptive to fail. So, so world cannot accept a failed Pakistani state. It will create far too many explosive elements in it, and therefore even India cannot accept an internally imploding Pakistan state. So that's the reason that everybody says, okay, they are bad boys, they're useless, they're political infighting, etc., etc., etc. They learn nothing, but we have to support. So now this brings me to my second part, which I was coming to is, so what has happened is, post 9 May, when Asim Munir and party decided to that look, Pakistan, for the first time in history, the military is being directly challenged. The army is being directly challenged. Our establishments are under threat and are being attacked. We have to do something. So he has used heavy hand. He believes that by using a heavy hand, exploiting people, threatening families, bringing ex-servicemen, dealing strongly with ex-servicemen, removing a couple of errant generals who incidentally are all Pashtuns. None of them is a Punjabi. He has sort of stalled the rot. But the reality is, he still has to go through elections and electoral periods. So what has he done? He's taken charge of the the Pakistani economy. What is he doing is, he says, I will decide, and all these decisions to provide ports, clarity on this the refinery, and most important is $4.5 billion worth of nuclear power plant, which is based on molten salt reactor uh, being built up Myanmar by China. He has given it a clearance. The reality is the molten salt reactor is the first of its kind, which the Chinese are being built. It is not even operational in China, incidentally. And why it is being built in Myanmar is because that's where the thorium and thorium and the plutonium nuclear reactors are, which are both required for this molten salt reactor. So the issue is, he is taking chances. He says, I am aware we cannot run PIA. I'm aware I cannot run Karachi Airport. I know I cannot run Lahore Airport. I need somebody to run the Karachi port, etc., etc. And I need to generate funding for it, because if once I create a degree of stability in Pakistan, even through these manners, the investment will start flowing in. The second area he's trying to do is, he's giving the mining contracts. The mining, coal mining, the oil, etc., or gas, he is now giving it out to the foreigners. So the crown jewels of Pakistan are on sale, and he believes by selling these items, he would be able to generate some degree of finances and confidence of investors' confidence. The third element he's trying to do is that he is using the army to bring him out of stability in the economy through better distribution, better taxes, and also providing goods and services, and using the Fauji foundations and other elements of that. So that's the, now to do that, what has he done? What is being done? We have a caretaker, Mr. Rahman, as the caretaker prime minister. He brought in this element of old uh, this thing delimitation of the constituencies, because the constitution delimitation has to be done, and now after the report the delimitation process has to be gone through. So effectively what Pakistan has done is postpone the elections from the 3-month period that is allowed under constitution, using the excuse of delimitation, to 2024. And this period of 8 to 9 months is being sought by Pakistan to ensure that Pakistan, he can bring about his imprint of economic reform, of economic stability onto and using the leverages with the caretaker government to bring about these changes. This is a big gamble. This is a huge gamble. Will it work? Nobody knows. All signs, we will get to see the signs when we see things happening on the ground. But as you are aware, you can't put a plant in 6 months, you can't put a refinery in 6 months, you can't get a this. But all you can do is none of these elements which he's trying to do provide any degree of assurance to the people. पीपल को जिसको रोटी कपड़ा मकान की जरूरत है, वो उसके लिए ये कोई चीज कोई मायने नहीं रखती. उसको चाहिए खाने के लिए रोटी, रोटी के लिए चाहिए वीट नहीं है. उसको चाहिए दाल सब्जी, दाल नहीं है. उसको चाहिए बिजली है पर 28 रुपए किलोवाट की है, जबकि हिंदुस्तान में वो 6 रुपए किलोवाट की मिलती है. वो इस्तेमाल नहीं कर सकता. वो सिर्फ बिजली को इस्तेमाल करता है शादी घरों के लिए, जब वो शादी घर में लोग शादी करने जाते हैं वहां पे होता है, उसके बाद नहीं. On top of that, he is a mounting debt with the Chinese under the CPEC. So how is he going to manage this is something of a big question mark. And here I like to share an anecdote with you. It's not an anecdote, it's a reality. As I mentioned to you, I'm part of a track 2 dialogue and I part of a nuclear CBM dialogue. We went for our discussions with our colleagues from the other side, and suddenly we found a very senior Pakistani nuclear establishment personnel who just retired a couple of months back come there and give us a sort of a dressing down to say, please do not misunderstand us. Pakistan's nuclear weapons are for real. We believe in nuclear war fighting. There's no question of any conventional war under nuclear overhang. If the war starts, Pakistan will not hesitate to use nuclear weapons, and you should be concerned on this issue that we are. And the reason we are aware that you are developing fast, we are available, you're becoming stronger, but you must understand this, that if there is a nuclear conflict, you will suffer as much as we suffer, blah, blah, blah. Whole issue was, why are you neglecting us? Why are you not talking to us? Why are you not opening trade with us? We said, look, हमें आपसे कोई लेना देना नहीं है साहब. आप अपनी आपके पास देश है, आपने देश मांगा था ना 47 में हमसे, हमने दे दिया आपको. आपने उसको कैसे चलाना है आप चलाते आ रहे हो. आपने उसको बुरी तरह से चलाना है, इस्लामिस्ट से चलाना है, टेररिज्म से चलाना है, या लूट के चलाना है, वो आपकी जिम्मेवारी है. अपना देश है, जो मर्जी करिए. आप हमारे को क्यों बोलते हो?
एग्जैक्टली.
तो कश्मीर का भी तो बंटवारा हो गया ना. आप ले आए थे, उसके बाद हमने भगा दिया आपको. अभी कश्मीर, जो हमारा कश्मीर हमारा है, वो अटूट अंग है इंडिया का, उसको कोई नहीं ले जा सकता. सो the question basically which the point was being made was that हम तो डूबेंगे सनम, आपको भी ले डूबेंगे. So our answer to was that, look, don't live under misperceptions. We are a strong nation, we are a peaceful nation, we want good relations with you, but don't you threaten India under any circumstances. But It is not threatening India, which is bothering the Pakistani army. The Pakistani army's problem is this, that for the first time, they are holding a package which is unmanageable. They for the first time they are facing a situation where they are forced to act and act against their own people with the hope of bringing them relief and reform, which उनके उनके जो है क्षमता से बाहर है, is outside their. सो उनके अंदर एक डर पैदा हो गया है. वो डर ये है कि अगर हम ये चीज़ों को कंट्रोल नहीं कर सके, ऑलरेडी देश के अंदर फौज के खिलाफ काफ़ी एक तरह का एक नया जो है, देयर इज अ न्यू फीलिंग दैट फौज. एक ने बहुत अच्छा बोला कि फौज ने तो कोई जंग नहीं जीता, फौज का तो सिर्फ काम है कि अपने देशवासियों को ही वो दबा के रखना. उन्होंने आज तक कोई जंग नहीं जीता. एक एक वो कहता है वो कि सबसे बड़ी फौज की बात यही है कि वो जंग तो जीती नहीं है, परंतु अपने देशवासियों को दबा के रखती है. और दैट काइंड ऑफ फीलिंग इज रनिंग ऑन. So this is the situation in which the phrase which is being used in Pakistan is from decolonization to colonial, from colonial uh, uh, mandate to a cantonmentization of Pakistan. If Pakistan is being cantonmentized, if Pakistan is becoming a cantonment controlled state where there is a role of cantonment everywhere. So this is the story of of Pakistan.
Let me ask you this, sir.
Hmm.
USA is still the net security provider of the Middle East West Asia region. 10,000 troops still sitting there in Saudi Arabia. Uh, Correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm the firm believer that Saudi doesn't like Biden. It probably doesn't have a problem with the US. And USA's latest policy with regards to the world is to create net security providers of a particular region wise. For example, if you see, India is being created for, in their eyes, if you look at it, India is being strengthened up for the Indo-Pacific. You've got the Saudis getting strengthened up for the West Asia. They're strengthening up Poland for Eastern Europe. uh, Western Europe, they pretty much themselves command. You've got Japan, which is coming out for the North Sea, and that Sea of Japan, and a little bit on towards the north, that entire region. And you've got Australia, which is coming in, the
Also,
southern. Yeah. So each region has kind of a regional power which is being supported by the US to fight their battles for them at the end of it. What do you think is the role of the US when they sign a secret security pact with Pakistan and Saudis go inside there? That security pact with the US talks about basing rights. How do you kind of see this whole thing opening out going forward,
okay.
sir?
Okay. A very interesting question, sir. Let me try and answer to. As far as the United States is concerned, till the Khashoggi issue and till the MBA, whatever the guy,
MBS.
MBA came into power, the Americans used to dictate terms to
Hmm.
the Saudis, and they had a control of everything. What has happened recently is this: the MBA has realized that it will be foolish on the part of Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and all the other major countries, this is UAE and Bahrain and other Egypt also included, uh, Iran. They all come to realize, sorry, not Iran. So they will come to realize that it will be foolish to be dependent on one power. A. Second, Ukraine war has indicated to them is the total Europe centricity of the West, that they are so fully involved in supporting Ukraine against Russia. They have no time for anything else, and their sanction strategy has been an absolute failure, which has created a huge amount of misery, social misery to people. The uh, the food supplies have gone down. And they also saw the attitude of the West during the COVID, where they completely neglected the so-called have-beens in order to ensure that there were 8 to 10 vaccines available for per individual in their country, where there were none available in this part. So there has been a great degree of loss of interest, I would say,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
uh, they feel that the West has been not fair to them in relation to the investments they have made in the West. The second thing that has happened is the alternatives have come up. And the alternatives have come up in terms of China, China's role, China's investment, China's capacity to supply, China's uh, uh, under the Global Security Initiative, it has taken initiative to broker a deal with Iran. Uh, Brokering a deal with Iran has been a setback to the Americans, because suddenly now the Saudi Arabia card cannot be played. Saudi Arabia cannot be used leverage against Iran by the Americans. They said we have a embassy over there. We are trying to build up a relationship. Now, if this thing happens, where do the Americans go? And lastly, the Americans are too involved in Indo-Pacific. So as of now, the Americans have got two major theaters to get concerned about. One is the European theater, and second is the Indo-Pacific theater. They
Hmm.
simply do not have any help. 10,000 troops mean nothing. They can keep putting troops in the civilian ships and sending them across over here. Everybody realizes. Yeah, on top of that, sir, what is going to happen is Iran has shown guts by providing a huge amount of modernized weapon systems to the Russians. And on top of that, you have is Turkey, which is not playing Turkey with the West. Turkey is not playing Turkey with the West. So now what happens? So the West is feeling being left out. So two things they did, which I mentioned. ITU2 is a infrastructure and investment arrangement where country like India is very happy, because we get to invest in the region, we get the investments from the region. We have a good relationship with Israel, we have a good relationship with Abu Dhabi, and we it's a win-win situation for all of them in terms of economic this thing. But it is not a security system. In fact, the tragedy of West Asia is that, unlike other places which are covered under some norms of a security architecture, there is no security architecture in Middle East. Zero. And now the new security architectures are being created, like the 400 billion deal with the Russians and the Iranians, then Iran, China, Russia arrangement. On the other hand, this is Saudi Arabia, China, in which Russia could play a part. And adding to that, tomorrow is Syria, which are now being integrated with the Gulf Cooperation Council. So under these arrangements, the Americans find themselves, their old beliefs that they could have their say in the region is not working well for them. And on top of that, the American policy establishment is losing interest. They say, what are we going to happening? What do we need? We have got our own oil. We don't. We used to need them for oil. We don't need them for oil. What are we? And what is it? We don't do any trade with them. This is not our trading route. Our trading route is in the east. So concerned people are the Europeans. Europeans are concerned people. And
That's
now
true.
we are now also seeing an interesting development, as you are aware, of the Niger coup, where the even the uranium mining is going to go out of their control. So so there are series of setbacks, and the new mini letters that have come about in the region have
Hmm.
clearly indicated that the West's hold over the region has become tenuous. Recently, in an exhibition, defense exhibition, UAE signed $6.2 billion worth of contracts. Only $1.5 billion went to the West, and balance were all with the other countries. So China and Russia and some other small countries. That's the difference. So I hope I've answered the question. So
Absolutely, absolutely, sir.
this brings me to the US factor vis-a-vis Pakistan. For shortage of time, I will not go into the history, etc. Although, as you're aware, the CENTO Pakistan started his life by becoming a member of CENTO and SEATO, two anti-Soviet organizations to preventing to keep the spread of communism into the region, etc. And the second part, Pakistan's basic issue was that Pakistan wanted to leverage this relationship to countervail India at the beginning of our independence days. Then came and thereafter, uh, you are aware how Pakistan allowed itself to be used against the Soviets. They created the Taliban. Then they came. Then after the 2001 uh, Twin Tower attack, uh, Musharraf was given no choice. The Americans moved in there, and after 20 years of fighting in Afghanistan, the Americans had enough, so they pulled out, leaving Pakistan with the lurch. So Pakistan today is in a situation where it has to deal with Taliban Pakistan on a daily basis, which is creating havoc into it. There are a large number of weapon systems which they have left behind, about $80 billion, which are available at cost, which has certainly upgraded the capacity of terrorism in Pakistan, including the Baluchis who recently attacked yesterday the Chinese convoy. So this is the yet we have to understand two elements. The Americans are concerned. The Americans are concerned that the Islamic State of Khorasan remains an important element. Secondly, they are also concerned that the militant Islam and the radical Islam is not dead, and Islamists are going to play a major role purely because, not because that they are becoming terrorists, etc., but if you see what is happening in Europe, large number of Western European countries are getting the huge amount of Islamic influence. Even the United States, there is a growing Islamic influence, and that influence can be manipulated tomorrow against the West. So again, like Saudi Arabia, I said, and the West Asia, which wants to keep a pulse on both the Barelvi and Salafi elements in Pakistan, who are supporting terrorism, these guys are also equally keen to remain engaged with the Pakistani establishment to ensure that the radical Islamist forces do not rear their head and don't become tomorrow uh, another Frankenstein element which led to the attack on the Twin Tower. That's behind this one element. The second element is that nuclear weapons are a cause of concern.
Right.
Pakistan continues to move their weapons in a very nonchalant manner from one place to the other. There are pictures available how these various missiles and etc. Fissile materials have been moved. At any stage, they can fall into the wrong hands. Americans maintain close to about 1,000 troops or 1,000 specialists with a on a close call for intervention in Pakistan at any given time. As I'm discussing with you, these elements are around. Where they are, we do not know, but the Americans are very clear that if a push comes to shove, we will need to at least attempt to take out majority of the weapons or take over the nuclear command authority or do, I mean, whatever is required to be done. That's a big concern they have. And the third concern is that If the new axis comes up, that is the Iran, Russia, Pakistan, and going down to the West Asia, if the new axis comes up, they will start controlling the Straits of Hormuz, and also they will start controlling the east coast of Africa. Now, if
Hmm.
this larger area comes under the influence of inimical Eastern powers, as we call them, that is Africa, sorry, the Chinese and the Pakistan and the Russians, and along with their other allied partners, that is something which the West cannot accept. accept.
Correct.
Now,
Hmm.
if this thing comes up, they need to have a certain degree of investment and relationships in Pakistan. Now, questions are being raised why SISOMA has been extended. Now, SISOMA is basically an intelligence sharing agreement where you share intelligence with the other side. Now, everybody thinks that the intelligence sharing agreement is only one sided issue. No. If you're sharing intelligence with a state like Pakistan, you also understand you have penetrated their intelligence establishment. So it is important to understand that the nature of intelligence being shared, the nature of intelligence being received by them. If you get a station inside Pakistan, you can also start monitoring what is being shared by the Chinese, what is being shared by the others. So you have a sort of a
Listening post.
foothold exactly inside a state. So that's an important part of this thing. Because remember, the situation for United States at this point in time is this: is on the continental Eurasia. I repeat, continental Eurasia, Americans have no foothold, zero. They have no allies in this region. So intrinsically, United States military power and influence is along the maritime domains, continental Europe, and in the East Asia and Western Pacific. That's it. That's all that they have. They have nothing beyond that. So this is the problem area that is facing the Americans. The Chinese, on the other hand, has some the opposite of this. You can उसको आप प्लेट को उल्टा कर लीजिए तो चीन नजर आ जाएगा. परंतु देयर इज अ बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग स्टेटमेंट आई है अभी एक चाइनीज ब्लॉगर से. उससे पूछा गया कि क्या चाइना टू फ्रंट वॉर के लिए तैयार है.
Yeah.
यू सीन दैट नो. You see, so are you ready for two front war?
Yeah.
He said, we are fully conscious that if there's a war on Taiwan, the Americans will intervene and it will be a long slugfest, and we will be fully involved. Then the question was asked, how will you manage the Indian threat? He says, apart from other things, he said that India can be managed, we are stronger, etc., nonsense that he talked. He said, we also have a Pakistan card. We'll use Pakistan to create trouble against India and try to contain India by creating a two-front scenario for India also.
Yeah.
So so इसके अंदर whatever we might turn around and say in terms of the reality of thing, it indicates the thinking. We have to be cognizant of the thinking of these people. The thinking is this: is Sino-Pak collusion is a reality. Sino-Pak collusion works in terms of a military tandem security environment, which is against India. And the Chinese, in their mind, believe that they can leverage it. Although, mind you, the reality has been that Pakistan has refrained from being utilized. But the question is, how much is the prize money here? If you give Pakistanis lots of prize money, they will do anything they want. So this brings me to the last point I have. Is that The, we need to understand this in this country that our strategic neighborhood, we are getting constrained in our strategic neighborhood. And we need to work hard to bring up better relationship in our neighborhood. With Pakistan, we cannot have a good relationship. With China, if you notice, we do not have a good relationship. But if you see 4 years of standoff, which has not culminated beyond use of batons, let me say, which has not gone beyond the use of batons, there is a degree of understanding on both sides that escalation is bad. With
It is a
Pakistan, like,
yeah. It is a mature enmity.
well, okay. But with Pakistan, I told you what that idiot said
Yeah.
in this thing. So Pakistan is an immature state. Is a state who cannot be trusted, and like a good Punjabi, they act first, then think later, and that can create a huge amount of problems, if, particularly if you are dealing with nuclear weapons. So, but from our part, our northeast, our north, Nepal, northeast, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, we have to manage good relationships with them so that these states do not fall prey to the machinations of the Chinese and Pakistanis. And so it's important to understand that Sino-Pak relationship is a part and parcel of an India containment strategy. And whatever the CPEC does, whatever Pakistan does, apart from its economic factor, there is will always will be a strategic factor aimed at undermining India's strategic autonomy. And that's something which we need to take care of. And that's where we need to understand that when we look at Pakistan as a state, we should not look at it as just a state, but should look at it as the composite entity which is supported on one hand by the Chinese, on the other hand, it's part of the new alliance system that is permeating, starting from China through Southeast, Central Asia, going to Iran, going to the West Asia, and on the other hand, the Americans have their own interests in maintaining a credible relationship with things. And my last point is, please remember that 90% of the Pakistani generals have dual partnership, dual passports. They all have double passports. They are citizens of Pakistan and control their nuclear weapons, but they also hold American passports.
Which is where I'll take a last comment from you, sir.
Hmm.
All this great, sir. Saudis coming in, Americans coming in, the pushback, the loser will be the Chinese, sir. In
Yes,
Pakistan, the Chinese influence will start wading back because the Americans will say, oh, you want to do business with us? Okay, how much money is coming in? Start paying off China and get him off your back.
that's a very excellent question, sir. So when the Saudis come into this thing, or the Qataris come into it and run the airports, or the Emiratis come into it, you ask me a question: has the American influence waned? Has become less? I agree with you; it has waned. But remember one thing: the Sanders, the drill sergeants, the training is always will be British, and the Brits and the Americans working in tandem will have an impact. So this is absolutely correct, and to that extent, the Chinese will be the sufferers. I agree with you.
Insightful, sir. That's all I will say. This is this is what I find interesting in geopolitics is that you can actually put two and two and actually make five. Because the space between two and two is always counted in geopolitics. In probably in mathematics, it's not, because it's there's a lot which is hidden between the lines that we probably can't see right now, and things will open out
Yeah.
as time per se. Sir, always a pleasure talking to you, and
Thank you very
this has been
much.
a fantastic session, and I'm looking forward for our next one, Badi Jaldi, and we'll probably do another deep dive. So I wanted
Okay.
to request you, we let's do a podcast one day with some live audience also. Let people also ask you some questions and stuff like
Oh,
that.
good. I love to do that. Live,
So,
live, live audience is great. Great. Yeah, sure.
so we'll plan this on one of these weekends, and where
Yes.
you can spend a nice afternoon with the audience and just have a ball. Till then, sir, thank you so much,
Thank you.
and
Thank
Jai
you.
Hind.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.